Welcome to the third filmed episode of The Other Side. Today I have very special guests because I was the first, or my first podcasts were with both of them. You were actually my first podcast. Yep. This is Logan Czajkowski. Did I get the last name right?
But sure,
okay,
that's fine.
I'm sorry. I'll put the spelling at the bottom.
No, you're
and
okay.
then Donnie Shields here, and they both mean a lot to me because they have helped me out in my career field, pursuing it and just giving me notes and things and tips along the way. So I really appreciate that. And like I said, this one means a lot to me. So what is your podcast called, Logan? And what does it revolve around? Because I know you have one too.
Yeah. So the name of my podcast is called The Logo, and it's a podcast about everything. Simply because it is that, about everything. I've had episodes on sports, music, fitness, health, stuff like that. You name it, I've probably talked about it on there. The name The Logo came up with, I'm a huge fan of the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And obviously it's named after him. I don't want it to be called the Logan Czajkowski podcast because as we've seen, no one can pronounce it correctly. So Logan, I thought that's a pretty clever tagline that I'm the logo of all podcasts. Not saying that I'm better than anybody, but it's just...
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you've had quite a few guests on there as well. I mean, could you bring those up at all, or bring?
So I've had a couple close friends. Kyle Coleman, Nash Hartley were a few of them that I had on there. Talked about movies, health. You've been on a couple times, Donnie. Even you've been on. We've had a lot of good talks about movies. I've had a lot of close friends that were local pro wrestlers because pro wrestling is something to me that has meant a lot in my life. So it was actually kind of cool to be able to have not only friends, but I've also met a couple new pro wrestlers from other states and other areas through them that have actually had to come on and tell their story and talk about why it was so important to them and why they got started doing that.
That's really awesome. Where can people find that or listen to you?
So I use a platform called Anchor. I pretty much record it on Anchor, and it gets shipped to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. There's 7 different platforms. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but mainly find me on Apple Podcasts. You just go to the podcast app and just type in The Logo, a podcast about everything, and it'll show up.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll move on to Donnie next. Thank you for letting me film in your house here, in your studio. This is something that I thought was so cool, always seeing it in your podcasts and things, and I thought it would be awesome if I got to shoot one here as well, just to let the audience see it as well. Could you tell me a little bit about your podcast, how that began, and where you hope to go with it? Because you've had quite a few guests as well, and I just watched the last one with, what was his name, the
Mark
musician?
Schuler.
Yes, that was a really cool one to listen to. I listened to that on the way back to school last week. So if you could just tell us a little bit about the background of it.
All right. Well, Shield of Hope Productions was originally my film channel on YouTube. And what I decided about last year was, okay, well, since coronavirus is going on and everything else, why don't we just start a podcast version? So we were bringing on all sorts of people in the entertainment industry, the music industry, anything to do with arts, even some sports, because, it's entertainment in itself. Mm-hmm. So we sat down and we were talking to people on like 30-minute segments, hour segments. To me, podcasts, they're not really like time-based. People like the shorter ones. Some people like the informative shorter ones. And then we do, like, I think you're my longest one with like an hour and 26 minutes.
That's my fault because I keep talking.
No, that's fine. It creates a good entertainment process for everybody to listen to, especially when you're talking about cool stuff. So yeah, that's how the podcast came about. And you can find us on YouTube for the video form along with my short films. And you could also check us out on Rumble. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we're looking to branch out to different medias and different platforms.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've talked to me about that before, and that's awesome as well. And if you could, as well, with the Shield of Hope, production and your own, it's your own company. Essentially, you started it from the ground up. Could you give us a background on like where you began, especially because I know you've had quite the journey throughout school and also with your films, kind of how we talked about it the other day, if you could.
2014, I graduated high school, and even in high school, I was like, okay, still shooting music video projects. I'll say where I'm from, Berwick, Pennsylvania. But at Berwick High School, which you came from and you came from, they've had good journalism programs.
Yes.
So with that being said, we were kind of more advanced than some other local schools in that industry. So we were already shooting music videos and like top sports content already. So when I went to the college spectrum at Du Bois, I was familiar with the cameras, the setups, all the different things that go with it. But I learned more hands-on, what do I want to call it, like guerrilla warfare type style shooting with the actual Lumex G7s and all these other fancier equipments that I can't really own or else I would be broke. So taking it from there, 2015, my first short film came out on the channel, and it's kind of been that way since. We've put out at least 1 to 2 short films per year. So that's kind of where the film career started, inspired by George Lucas. I always go back to that, about Star Wars and Spielberg and George Lucas and J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we were talking about it the other day as well, too, but you were talking about, like, your experience through Bloomsburg with film school and how other schools differ from that. And if you could just talk about, because you were informing me about how school is not really, not that it's not important, but that a lot of people can learn a lot of things on their own through platforms like YouTube and other things. If you could just...
Yeah, well, if you're expecting one particular organization to teach you everything, that's never going to happen. The people that succeed the most in life are the ones that actually go out of their way, want to learn extra stuff. So when I talked to you about it, I talked about going on YouTube, which is a really good source for artists, and especially like you can learn how to fix cars on there and everything. Like it's not just it's not just filmmaking, although there's a lot of good film networks on there. And if you want to go out there, learn some of the basics of filmmaking, the stuff that they don't teach you in college or whatever aspect you're in, whatever career choice, just go above and beyond. There's certain books laying around the studio with different screenwriting stuff. Not to use promotional advertising, but do whatever you have to do. Don't expect the teachers to do that. And even if teachers do teach you everything that they can teach you,
yes.
One thing that I learned, what I came about with different filmmakers, and there's I'm not going to name the filmmaker, but I was having a conversation with him, and he was talking about how he wished he would have picked up the camera more because he hasn't done a film for like 3-4 years. And I was like, well, why don't you? He's like, well, life's been busy, and I just don't have the ideas or the time. How do you do it? I was like, I just make myself do it, because that's the only way you get better is you pick up a camera, go out, direct things, and you don't need the biggest budgets. Here at Shield of Hope, I think the most we spent is like $300 on a film. That's for props, paying for people to eat, gas, whatever it is. So we write around and direct around what we have and what we know we can get, especially as actors or sets. Yeah. So hopefully that would answer your question.
No, and that's really interesting that you say that too, because with this podcast and what I was hoping to do with it was, like I had the idea at the end of 2019. I've been telling all my guests about it, and the goal of it is to reach out to people. And I know this is kind of like a freebie one because we kind of are all in agreement on a lot of political and social issues and things like that. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I wanted to be able to do something that didn't require much of a budget. And I was like inspired by you guys, especially with the podcast. And it's funny because I was talking to a guest yesterday and they were like, everybody and their mothers are doing podcasts now. And that is kind of true. And I'm not hoping to like become famous or anything off of it. Like if it was cool, it would be cool to get a little bit of recognition, especially around the area, hopefully with the message of like being able to reach out and talk to the other side and people that disagree with you and things like that. So my goal here is to just have like free conversations about things that matter most to people. So yeah, this is just something that I'm kind of rambling on here with it as well, but something I've wanted to do, and I didn't think that I would be able to do it for years to come. And this is something that was funny too, because with my short film, The Beginning of the End, which was, you can find that on my YouTube channel. It's not very good. It was my second short film for school. But with that, that was a story I had written my senior year of high school. And I was like, man, I would love to like make that one day way down the road. And I know I've talked about this on your channel as well too. And then, 2 years later after high school, I'm unexpectedly making it with my best friends back home due to the pandemic and the circumstances that surrounded that. So I was very lucky with that. And to think that a year later, after when I had this idea at the end of 2019, that I'm beginning it in the beginning of 2021, it's just amazing to me that like, the way that things all end up falling into place. And so to kind of go off that, I know I got off topic there, but I wanted to bring that up with you guys so that you know what we're talking about. But to go off that, I know your channel's kind of starting to go in a little bit of a different direction this year. You want it to, I know we were talking about it the other day as well, and if you could, about the films and the projects that you're working on and what's coming up. I know you said about like child sex trafficking and depression and things like that. If you could talk a little bit or expand on that.
So basically every other year we at Shield of Hope, last year was more like a revenge type of year, even though it doesn't have the best morals to it. We were shooting in preparation for probably our biggest hit film, which was called Agendas.
Yes.
So every other year we do a inspirational one, or like at least a group or a series of inspirational films, and then we go into like more action, and then we go back to a little bit more serious and emotional, and like we try to keep that good moral value in place. So with last year being like a revenge and a lot of action, this year logically we go back to the emotional and about good moralistic films. And it happens to be this year that with a lot of the sex trafficking awareness that needs to happen, because and this will get political, but the last administration really helped out a lot with sex trafficking, whether it's children or just like women in general. So we wanted to make more of an awareness in a short film form for that. Also, during the coronavirus, you got suicide and depression rates, which are already going up and skyrocketing. One would argue even more so than getting the virus itself, that we wanted to raise awareness and saying, hey, somebody's always there for you. You know, maybe you have that guardian angel approach, which is what you'll see with this film without giving too much spoilers. But yeah, we just wanted to raise awareness to all these issues and create a good, solid short film that's going to last between 10 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that would be a perfect transition into something that you've done with your podcasts and you're doing now with your films, and that brings us into the political realm, and that is putting these political messages or subtext kind of things into your projects. I know that we've talked about like the Joker controversy, and we've kind of got political with that, and how that film affected people, and then you now with the child sex trafficking and depression. They are huge things that people should hit on and talk about. So do you guys find that challenging to do, like to have that, like have a politics involved in your projects? Are you ever scared to involve those things, or is it something that, you know, you guys just believe in and that you want to, you know, share with everyone else?
A lot of times I do kind of think to myself, like, okay, maybe I probably shouldn't talk about this certain topic because I don't know how other people are going to feel from hearing it. But I do have a platform. We all have a platform now as podcasters to kind of take a break from reality and just be like, all right, just talk to people out there. Like maybe you could give like a certain story about a specific topic that could actually help change somebody's life. So my advice to anybody, and you included, don't be afraid to talk about the negatives as much, because a story that you have or a story or a guest that you have on could change somebody else's life who's going through the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Well, if I could just interject there as well with that, I interviewed Ezio Valeri yesterday, and you know, he brought up, we were talking about mental health and things, and he shared very personal stories that, you know, people will eventually see if this one comes out first or if that one comes out first. I'm not sure the order that it will be placed, but I asked him, I was like, at a point when he was sharing so much, I was like, are you okay that we're talking about this? And he's like, yeah, dude, the conversation has to like start somewhere. And I was like, that's a good point. I was like, this is exactly, and he's like, isn't that what you're trying to do? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that he brought up a very good point about that, and I think that it is important more so now than ever to do that. And not just that I wanted to get you guys because, you know, you guys gave to me with your podcasts, and now I'm trying to give back here too. But I thought that you guys were two good people to interview and talk to, because, you know, you guys are like middle of the ground people to me. Like, you're not, I didn't want to go anybody or interview anybody on the far left or the far right or anything like that. But people that have like not necessarily a moderate mindset, but a middle of the road mindset that can see both sides clearly and have something to say about it and make sense with it, but also hear other people's opinions and things like that. And if I could, with you, I know that you're someone that, and we've talked about this before, and if you're comfortable with it, you know, you identify as Democrat, right? But you're more of a Trump supporter.
Correct.
Could you go into talking about maybe why you are, and also, you know, what that has brought upon you, you know, being like identifying as a Democrat but being a Trump supporter, because I know that it's not easy to do that nowadays, especially with everything that's going on.
Well, I always start off by saying, listen, when I pick Democrat or Republican or even independent still, like, obviously as an independent you don't have the structure of government. Like, when you're a Republican, you want a Republican style of government. Yes. When you're a Democrat, you want a democracy. I'm under a democracy. That's why I label myself as Democrat. But it has shifted because Republicans have more actually in common with democracy than the Democrats do right now. So I find myself being the JFK type style Democrat, which is what I never thought I would be, because, you know, you grow up in a church, and even JFK and what was going on in the 70s, where they still agree with abortion, they wanted, like, the whole women's movement too was going on, and a lot of these other issues have always gone on through American history, but since the 20s, 30s, 40s, and on. So that's where I'm kind of stuck at right there. So, you know, I don't like the idea of a republic style government compared to democracy, because I will always favor democracy. Yeah. But that's, again, where I'm at.
Well, that's okay, and I'll transition over to you, and if you feel comfortable with it as well. I mean, I know you kind of more, you know, from our conversations and things, you seem to identify more of, you know, on one side of the spectrum, but I feel as though you're able to see things from both sides. Is it easier to do that now, or do you think it's harder to do that now, especially with everything that's going on in the world?
To be honest, in recent years, I really haven't followed politics a lot, and I don't know if it's because of what's going on in the world now. I've seemed to follow it a lot more now recently, and I've kind of been the person where if you can help this country, I'll vote for you, and you have my support.
Yes.
So overall, whether it's a Democrat, Republican type thing, if you can do better for this country and make everybody's life better, not just trying to make your own, then by all means, you have my support.
Yeah, no, I think those are very good points. And I mean, I know this kind of goes off the question of putting, like I said, having the politics included in your own projects and things, but like, are you afraid to just speak vocally? Like if you hear someone talking about something, do you feel comfortable like interjecting yourself and maybe being like, hey, you know, this is my opinion, or like, no, this is actually like a fact? Because I know I've talked with you down here before many times, or, you know, within the last couple of months even, about things, and you seem to know your history pretty well. And I'm kind of with Logan. Not that I didn't always pay attention to politics, but not as much until like the last few years. And I really got into it, especially in college, and especially when Trump became president. I was really interested in it. And I'll admit, like, and I was just talking with it was either Etsy or McKelly yesterday about it, that, you know, when it was in 2016 and Trump, it was Trump versus Hillary, like, I was one of those stubborn Trump supporters that was like, I don't want to hear anything from the other side, that side's stupid. And so like with this, I'm trying to, like I said, hear from the other side and kind of get both backgrounds. And like as time has gone on now, I see that both sides have their stupidity, and that neither side is really necessarily correct. But,
well, can I jump in?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So going back to talking about politics in your films, I always said, and we'll go back to what I'm talking about with the sex trafficking awareness and the depression. I don't consider those to be political issues. I just consider them to be about morals.
Human issues. Yeah.
So I always keep my films based off moral stuff. I can throw my shades at, like, maybe in like a scene or two, maybe with a sentence, I'll throw my shades in politically. Yeah. But as long as it's not an overarching theme. What ruins Hollywood films these days is the whole theme is based around an overall arc. Me and Logan are about to talk about Chaos Walking coming up here on the podcast. And if you ever saw that film, there's a lot of the whole idea of feminism in that film. Do I want to spoil it here? Are you going to watch it?
Probably not. You guys said it wasn't that great. I saw the reviews weren't. Not that I don't. That I
like the beginning. Reviews, I like the end. But in Chaos Walking, basically, this is a spoiler for everybody out there. The middle section is all the women have disappeared from the camp. Well, the lead guy killed all the women, but they didn't tell us why. I guess because he felt like threatened by the women. But I was like, that doesn't help, because you have a Thanos. Like Thanos to me is like a good arc character.
Yes.
Because when you have a villain that knows what they want, and actually like. If you think about Thanos in Infinity War, when he snaps in, his whole goal is to save like because the population of the universe has increased and the resources have decreased.
Yes.
He wants to get rid of half the population, which would logically solve the problems, but moralistically, that's not good to be doing.
Yeah. No.
So that's why you have this fight going on, and that's why he's a good character in the sense of like plot line and structure. But when you have a plot that comes out and just like, oh well, this show's about feminism here, and like men just hate women, you got to give me a little bit of something like. Because why?
Yes.
You know, so when a plot runs off that, that's why the film like that has those bad moments in that middle section. I like the beginning. I like the end. I'm interested to see where the next film goes. But I was like, it doesn't give me anything like, it seems stupid that just because he's a male, why would you just kill female just because you killed females?
No.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, that's a good point, though, too. And I mean, I see that now more so, and I can't give exact examples of films that do that, but there have been so many recently where they're trying to push some message or agenda, and it just like completely overshadows the plot. And I mean, obviously, you're talking about that kind of being. I mean, at least with Chaos Walking, that's its downfall. But and that actually, thank you for bringing that up, because that brings up a good point that I'd like to ask you. Like, do you think Hollywood should just stick to what they know and like, you know, try to bring back the basics, or do you think that they should keep like pushing these social issues and things like that? Because although I think it is important to get messages out there, it needs to be done in a correct way, and we've seen it done both successfully and not successfully. Like, what's your take on that? I mean, because you are a filmmaker.
I would never tell another filmmaker what they can or cannot make. Just like I would never tell another person what they can or cannot say. Yeah. I believe in the Constitution. That's exactly, you're free to do whatever you want to.
Yes.
What I would say to Hollywood, though, is when you go bankrupt in the end, this is on you. this isn't on us, and you can't push it against us like Ghostbusters back in 2016. You can't push it on us like Captain Marvel, which they say claimed, but then again we have like the conspiracy that Disney bought out tickets to make their theaters seem packed for Captain Marvel. We're bringing that up, and maybe people don't remember that, but look into that. That's actually an interesting theory, and it's proven to be true because people have gone into the theater, took pictures of an empty theater, but it was sold out online.
Yeah.
I don't think that many people buy Marvel tickets to not show up.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that, they lose money, and there's a saying: "Go woke, get broke."
Yeah.
And at a certain point in time, Hollywood's going to wake up and realize. I mean, Nike is finally realizing that a little bit after their sales plummeted by like billions of dollars. But so I don't want to say go where the money is.
Yeah.
But eventually, they're going to be losing money on the products they have and have shown consistently to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a very touchy and tricky subject because at the same time they're trying to promote a message that they think everybody wants to see, but then again they do it incorrectly. And the thing that kills me is that like watching a lot of these films and things like that, it just seems like Hollywood's kind of repeating itself over and over again. And now that I'd like to transition into this too, and I know we've somewhat talked about it, but like the double standards issue in Hollywood, I mean, you guys have probably both seen that. I know I just brought up with someone yesterday I forget what her name is, the Gina something for
Gina Carano.
Yes, from The Mandalorian, and there's been other instances and things like that, and what are your guys' takes, I guess, on the double standards in Hollywood?
Okay. Double standards. Again, when I'm talking about freedom of speech, and like I'm not going to tell you what to say or what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to say or what to do. As a company, though, I mean, obviously, you can fire people. I have no problem with you firing somebody just because you're a company, you're a business. You can run whatever part of democracy. You can run whatever business you want to do, and you can get fired. You can fire people. You can get fired for whatever. The problem is you don't see in this instance other people getting fired for their political beliefs if they're on the left.
Yes.
You see all of it on the right. And I find it fascinating, and this is just going back in the 90s, back in the 2000s, you're growing up, you're walking through the...
Oh, that's okay, that's okay.
Hold on, I'm going to answer that real quick.
That's no problem.
Hello? Hello? I said don't disturb you, I'm cleaning my room!
Yeah, but you don't see, like, when somebody on the right speaks their opinion compared to somebody on the left, they're not under fire as much. But again, being a company, you're allowed to fire whoever you want to. That's the part about being in this business.
Yeah.
And it being a true democracy, or, like, at least as close to the true democracy as we can get. Boy, I really don't know where I was going.
That's all right. That's all right. No
I was in
problem.
a whole train of thought, too. That's upsetting.
No,
that's very upsetting.
That's more than okay. I mean, do you have any opinions on that?
I was actually going to say pretty much along the lines of what he was saying. You really don't. I hate when they bring up like politics and stuff let's bring up sports, for example.
Yeah.
The NFL season that just ended. There was a big controversy years ago with the whole Colin Kaepernick thing.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was I hate when sports is brought up because it makes it not enjoyable, and like the whole thing with him kneeling. They don't see that there's people that like kids that watch this, and you're kind of pushing it, like kind of like religion. You're kind of pushing it on them. I just don't like that, but yeah.
Well, to go off that then as well, I mean, you're someone that just said about the freedom of speech, and I didn't mean to pose the question that I did a while back about like, do you think Hollywood should stick to its roots or like move forward? And like, I didn't mean that to say like they shouldn't speak freely, but these people and these professionals, whether it be in the field of sports, which is great that I'm happy you brought that up, or in the field of Hollywood, that they feel as though they have this platform that, they say that, I'm going to take advantage of the platform. I'm going to use it to spread good, and that good is their message or their agenda. Like I hear a lot of the time, I know something that was huge was, I forget who was the basketball player that like one of the Fox News people was like, shut up and dribble. Was it LeBron? LeBron? Yeah, and that was like a huge thing as well. And I know he spoke out about that and how adamant he was about that. I mean, what are your guys' takes on something like that, like using the platform? I know that kind of just recycles what we've talked about, but if you could maybe just talk about how that. Oh God, I don't even.
Well, if you're going to talk about something,
yes,
you should at least be informed about what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So when somebody tells LeBron to shut up and dribble, most of the stuff he said is inaccurate, whether it's historically or factual. Yeah. I will make this argument coming from Bloomsburg University. Coming from Bloomsburg University, there was an English professor the one time that English, okay, that's what he's supposed to be talking about. an English professor once told the class that we started World War II with Japan. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I was like, who bombed who first? Like, and we just had these discussions. But as somebody in an English major, should not be trying to talk about a historical major when that's not your major. Now, but again, it comes down to factual, misinformed. So now you're preaching to a bunch of 18-year-olds, and we can argue that 18-year-olds, especially going into college, 19-year-olds, don't come from, like, their mind is not purely developed. They're still looking for, like, answers out there. They're still able to be not only manipulated, but they're able to learn and grow too. And I think that's very dangerous when you have, no matter who it is, talking about stuff that they don't know anything about, and having people just, like, listening and just repeating it for no apparent reason other than because they don't ever look things up themselves.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and thank you for interjecting there, because I kind of lost myself there. That's the second time now. Yeah. But I won't keep you guys too long, because I know we're kind of all on a schedule. But if you could, I'll wrap it up with this. Where do you guys want to take both of your channels? Where do you see it going? What do you hope to accomplish with both channels? And I'll start with you, Logan.
Well, originally the logo started as kind of a competition with a friend of mine. Yes. We both said we'll both make podcasts, and we did it for fun at first. And then I started to get like a following. People were saying, "Hey, I really liked what you were talking about." I started to get more guests on, and then I kind of took a break once COVID started. Picked up again, the NFL, you were on that. And then I have also taken another break now because I'm currently purchasing equipment to make it into a video podcast. That's my plan. I want to take it. Right now I'm strictly audio. I do eventually want to have like a similar setup to you, something along those lines where I do have a guest come on and it is a video platform. So that's my goals for the future. As far as I've even thought about changing the name of it, I wouldn't know what I would name it, but because if you noticed, it is really about everything, but a lot of my specialties, I think, is sports. So I kind of thought about changing to a strictly sports podcast or something along those lines.
Be really cool, and we got to get The Rock on there at some point in time. I know you tweeted out at him.
Yeah.
So we'll be waiting on that response. I'll switch over to you, Donnie, there to kind of finish it up. Then where do you hope to take your channel in the future?
Well, I would say along the lines of Logan, trying to get those big, like The Rock or whatever on there. That'd be a huge breaking. Plus, it would grow your channel tremendously if you did get one of them. But I personally like the small guys. I was always somebody that cheered for the underdog. Yeah. So having people like Mark Sciarruto on, who was on Conan O'Brien's TV show, that not too many people are gonna know, but still out there being a starving artist, just like doing his own stuff, creating, doing whatever he can, and making a career for himself. I like talking to them because people like that don't get a lot of press and publicity, but they have a good story to tell, and a story that necessarily somebody in Hollywood doesn't have compared to what somebody has. So it's always fun, especially if you're the first to interview somebody and say, "Wow, I heard of him based off Donnie's show." It's like it's funny how they've kind of branched out. So what I try to do with my channel is, of course, talk to filmmakers, try to inspire filmmakers, and get them to just be creative and go out there, learn for yourself, make sure you pick up a camera all the time. Just go out and do it. I'd hate to steal it from Nike, but just do it.
No, that's a good point. I just want to thank both of you so much, because not only did you guys have me on both of yours, but now it's like full circle now that I'm getting to interview both of you, and it means a lot that especially I'm here in the studio with both of you all like at a round table thing like this. And it also means a lot to me too that you're both willing to speak up about what you believe in and share your views, especially because you have a platform now, and I'm hoping to grow my platform as well. And we all have to be careful, especially with everything going on. So it's not very easy, especially like with everything. So just to wrap it up, and what I've been doing with all the guests is, if you have one foundation or something that you would like to maybe if the audience watching would like to donate to, or you guys contribute yourselves, I would like to contribute to whatever that cause is. If you have one, would you like to say it? I can put it in the description or the bottom of the video.
I don't have one in particular, but I will say is look around what you have and what others don't, and donate to something that, whether it's in your heart or like you feel blessed to have, that somebody else doesn't have. So whether it's a food shelter, whether it's clothing shelter, or whether it's somebody with and there's, I'm not saying I've been in talks with anybody, but I know there's a place in Bloomsburg where it helps young women, whether they're having kids or have young kids, kind of figure out and like get clothing for the kids and make sure the kids at least have a home, and make the woman feel loved, if she's a single mother or whatever. So I mean, go out and just wherever your heart leads you, just give it.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have a passion for something, by all means feel free to donate to, whether it's a local like you said, a local company. It doesn't have to be like a big organization, just something small in your area that's helping the community, that will make your community better, and eventually your community can essentially help other communities get better as a whole.
Actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm going to tack on something before we finish up. Because you're someone that I knew for years because of like coming to the Y and things like that, but we have a shared job experience where we both worked at the Y, and now we've worked together for nearly the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, You've been there for how many years now?
This is 10.
Yeah.
10th year.
Can I ask what it's meant to you, like working with children and things like that? Because I know you're at News Story as well now, and that News Story deals with, children with like disabilities and things.
Yes.
Right.
Special needs school.
Or special needs school. Yes. So like overall, between working at News Story and the YMCA, like what has that meant to you, or what has that taught you anything or anything like that?
I'm gonna go through this without getting emotional.
That's okay.
The Y has helped me a lot. Because as a kid, we've all been through struggles, and this is not me saying that my struggles are worse than anybody else's struggles.
Yeah.
Along with my grandparents who helped me along the way, the Y has helped me learn a lot about myself as a person, what I want to be, and what I want to hopefully have others be. Mm-hmm. I mentioned I've been at the Y 10 years. One of my biggest things is helping the youth in the community, just so that way they don't go through the same struggles that I go through, mm-hmm. or struggles that you may go through, because everybody goes through them. My goal is just to help them learn how to overcome them and be better people. And the Y has helped me a lot in not only finding other people, myself as well.
Yeah.
So
well, that's an awesome answer because
And again, I apologize for getting emotional. No, I'm just very passionate about that. So
I appreciate that you're willing to share that as well, because I'm someone that, I always thought like, I'm probably good with kids, or like probably like I didn't know like anything, whether or not that was a sure thing or not. But I was working at Maze, and I was looking for a second job, and I remember my best friend's dad, Braden Regal, took over the childcare or as childcare director, and they were looking for people to employ, and so I was like, yeah, I'll jump on that because like the hours look good. It was like 3:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday or something. Or I was only gonna work like 3 days a week or something like that. And I remember getting in there my first day, and like all the kids were running around and stuff wild, and I was like, what the heck did I sign up for? Because I heard from people before that, run while you still can. And I was like, what? No, you guys got to. And I will have to say, it has been, and my friends make fun of me because I talk about it so much, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. But like, it has been so rewarding to me as well. And like, my parents probably know, I talk about that, and like, I share some of the things that like maybe I've experienced with the kids, or what they've gone through, or what they've experienced, and it's just insane what some of these kids experience, and I'm not going to get into that, but for most of them, or a lot of them, it's the best parts of their day. So like, to me, it meant a lot to work with someone like you, who's like so passionate about it, and then our other coworkers as well, that are just great people to work with and spend the days with.
The Y to me, like I said, it's always been, I was a kid in that program. Yeah. I know what it was like going through the same stuff they go through. It was never about money for me too, and that's the thing. When you do something, whether it's podcasting or anything else or childcare, don't make it about money. Do it because you love it and you want to make a difference. Yeah, that's my advice.
I think that's a great message to go out on. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Would you guys like any final words or anything to say, or if you could reiterate where everybody could find you at, whether it be your YouTube channels or podcasts?
Well, first off, I didn't get a chance to do this yet. Thank you for having me on too. I know you were my first, and you're kind of giving back, and I look forward to seeing where you go.
Thank you.
In the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where you said everybody can find you at?
Find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Right now, I said I took a bit of a hiatus. I'm currently planning future guests. I am in the works with some people. I can't really give any info yet. No, it's okay. But tune in. There is still more to come from me. So, yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
And as for you,
and thank you as well, Kevin. It's been it's about time.
Yeah, I know.
It took.
I know. I'm so sorry. I know. This is something that I've wanted to work on, like I said, forever now, and you guys really inspired me to move forward with it and get it, finally in the works. And you've helped me with like looking at how graphics and things and such are made to put it out there and things like that. So, I really appreciate that. I'm sure I'm going to be coming to both of you to ask you guys lots of questions in the future as well. Yeah. So, where can everybody find you one last time? Either be on YouTube or Instagram.
You can find me at Director Shields on Instagram or Shield of Hope Productions on YouTube, and Hope Speaks podcast. It's officially called on Spotify.
All right. Well.
Oh, you can also find me on Official Logo Pod on Twitter. I forgot to plug my Twitter.
Sweet.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. That's where the rock tweet came from.
That's-
Don't
Yeah.
worry, he's gonna put graphics at the bottom screen, right?
Tweet
Yeah,
at
yeah. I'll
everybody.
put there. Yeah, there's so many places where they can find
Everybody
you
go
guys.
retweet it. Yeah.
So I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you, and I'll wrap it up with that then.
Thank you as well.